Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news mashup video today, starting with the WBA, which is getting rid of interim championships, and that does affect the heavyweight division. This is a heavyweight channel, so I'm not going to be covering the rest of the divisions, what it means, but we will talk about what it means for the heavyweight division, because Daniel Dubois will be vacating that title per what the WBA has decided, and it's way premature for people to even say that he will be mandated to face someone like an Anthony Joshua, because that's not quite what the WBA statement on its website is saying. And see here, WBA interim championship will be vacated. So they've made this decision as of August 25th, and they're saying that gold champions will no longer appear above the rankings. Instead, they will occupy a place in it among the rated boxers. But what I'll do is I'll just flick down to here. So based on the rules detailed above, the now former interim champion will no longer defend titles. At the discretion of the president and the championship committee, they will be considered as mandatory contenders to the world champion of the division. And remember, the WBA considers the regular title to be the champion. The super champion is a cut above. So if Daniel Dubois, who's just now lost his interim title, more likely to be ordered to face Trevor Bryan, or there could be another scenario at play, and I'll get to that in a moment, based off some of what's to come. So either to fight for the championship as an official challenger directly, depending on the case, to participate in a box-off elimination bout to determine the official challenger. Once designated as the official challenger, the boxer may be allowed to participate in other bouts subject to the approval of the committee, yada yada yada. In the case of the reigning gold champions, they will no longer appear above the rankings. Okay, we know that gold champions and regional champions who are not mandatory challengers or will not be participating in an eliminator box-off may be allowed to participate in title defences, all within prior approval of the committee. Okay, so we'll cut to the actual rankings, because this is where it sort of becomes a little bit clearer about what's probably going to happen based off what I just went through. So in the WBA at this current time, at least according to the rankings page, you've got 5 different champions. Joshua is the super champion. The regular title, so what they call the WBA World Champion, and that's important when you flick back to what we just went through, Trevor Bryan. So that's the regular title. Champion in recess, Mahmoud Shah. WBA Gold Champion, Robert Helenius. And then Daniel Dubois, who was the interim champion. Now he is probably just the number 1 rated contender. Or, potentially from what they're saying, Robert Helenius will move into that number 1 spot because he is the current gold champion. There's a push on from the WBA to try legitimize this gold champion. I think to be similar, something like the WBC silver champion, something like that, a bit more prestige than their other regional belts. They're trying to separate it from it. They've tried to basically say they want to hold on to this, add more luster to it. This was in their previous announcement. And I was very skeptical anything would happen quickly. They sort of said, look, we're going to make some moves. It will be October probably, and in the week that they made the announcement, they put a vacant belt up, or an interim belt up for Mick Conlan to fight for. So it was random, but they've made this move. So they've bowed to public pressure because they've become a laughing stock, an absolute joke in the not just boxing in general, to the wider sort of sporting landscape. It's just, money for rankings, money for belts. Let's just have a belt. Everyone have a belt, and it's felt like that. 5 so-called champions in the heavyweight division for the WBA. It's ridiculous. So what's more likely, in my view, is what they were talking about is a box-off. I think if Daniel Dubois isn't ordered to face Trevor Bryan, because remembering it talked about then, where was it to... Could be done via elimination fights, and where was it? Somewhere above, I can't even find it anymore, but basically said they could be mandated to fight the champion. And Trevor Bryan is considered the WBA champion. Anthony Joshua is above that, the super champion. But when they're talking about in here, I can't even find my place anymore. Yeah, a box-off between 4 ranked boxers may be ordered to determine the official challenger in a category. Well, we have 4 different guys who are affected by this in some way, shape, or form. So that is Trevor Bryan, Mahmoud Shah, Robert Helenius, and Daniel Dubois. Mahmoud Shah will want to come back, fight someone, make some money. He's still claiming he was robbed, and he's taking legal action against Trevor Bryan's promoter, Don King, for shoving him out of the way. He was the holder of that title, the regular title. Trevor Bryan used to be the interim champion. A lot of backstory to that, won't go through that here. But Bryan, Shah, Helenius, and Dubois. And I guess there's a asterisk with Helenius, because he's set to face Adam Kovnatski in October the 9th on the Wilder Fury 3 undercard. So I would say the winner of that will be tossed into some sort of 4-way box-off with these guys. Remembering, I've just saw something this week that they're saying for Daniel Dubois after this fight, they'd be ready for the likes of Joseph Parker and also, who was the other one? Andy Ruiz Jr. I mean, the sort of matchmaking they've been sort of entertaining recently would suggest they're not going for any of those types of fights. But a box-off with these guys could totally see that happening. I'm not sure what sort of mix it would be, but what they're saying is it could be Daniel Dubois versus the WBA world champion, which is Trevor Bryan. So then maybe you could have the gold champion facing off against the so-called champion in recess, Mahmoud Shah, who actually had a fight a few months back against Christopher Lovejoy. So anyone saying that Dubois is set to face Anthony Joshua as a result of that, well, they just need to calm the farm, take a step back, and actually look at the situation and what's more likely. If they had said super champion, well, you could probably take that to the bank, but they did not. And if anything, if one of these guys actually, whoever comes through this, you could maybe argue that they deserve to be the mandatory. Anyway, moving on to Daniel Dubois, who's preparing for his upcoming fight against Joe Cusumano later this week. So it's on the Jake Paul undercard. So you can see here on screen, this is a photo from Media Day. And his quote, "I want to show that I'm all action. I'm not a man of many words," understatement, but when I get in that ring, they're going to see that I'm the real deal. It's going to be a devastating performance. I'm 23, so with that loss, I just have gotten stronger. I've had to learn to tighten up my game, that I have flaws, so I've just been working on that. This is going to be like my debut. I'm full of confidence and I'm ready to go right now. I can make this fight as easy as I want to be, in my opinion. I'm the next one coming through. I'm destined to be a world champion. That's my goal. Well, he's 23, so plenty of time to become a champion, and with the current backlog and other bits and pieces, title shots for someone who's not really sort of close to a title shot right now, probably 3 or 4 years away, let's face it, given the current log jam, other bits and pieces that would happen. But he's got time on his side, so he doesn't have to worry about that. And the matchmaking here is not great, so he is right. He probably will have it his own way. He can basically go out there, get the job done, and I'm expecting a devastating knockout. But it is one of these sorts of situations. You do ask the question, knocking out Bogdan Dinu in 1 or 2 rounds, and maybe Cusumano in similar sort of fashion, and it'll be a good-looking knockout. Does he get much out of that? Or are we just going to see a bit more of that sort of, which was pre-sort of Joyce-type matchmaking, just to help build his confidence back up, and then in a few more fights maybe he'll get thrown into something a bit sort of stiffer in terms of competition, because the talk of Ruiz and Joseph Parker, I mean, that's just hype. That's just sort of talk to sort of connect his name with them, get people talking about him, headlines, etc. Probably more likely to be more Dinus and Cusumanos of the world, given the recent matchmaking, rather than a massive step up. And because if he did have a massive step up, it would also be asking probably for failure again, because he probably hasn't worked out as many of the kinks that he's got as he thinks. But, he should get a devastating knockout this weekend against Cusumano. A tweet here sort of summarising some stuff from Eddie Hearn on IFL TV. So, Michael Benson. Eddie Hearn has stated that Dillian White's next fight will be October 30th at the O2, and named Chris Arreola, Jermaine Franklin and Charles Martin as possible opponents. He added that Alan Babbage will likely be on the card. Well, we've been here before, but except the location was going to be the United States. Same 3 guys, Franklin, Arreola and Martin were connected when Dillian White was potentially going to be fighting on DAZN in the United States. He was changed from that. They've pushed the fight date back. It's now no longer in America, potentially going to be October the 30th, and definitely in the United Kingdom. I mean, I said at the time when it got sort of shifted out of the US, probably to do with money, because White is used to that pay-per-view level money. He will want that and want to get paid well. But I think there was an expectation that if he was going to be fighting in the UK, that maybe someone like a Jermaine Franklin, at least from fans' perspective, that name might be off the table. Even Chris Arreola, I mean, do we really want to pay pay-per-view for that? People didn't really want to pay pay-per-view for the Andy Ruiz-Chris Arreola fight, even though it turned out to be an unexpectedly better than expected fight. Charles Martin versus Dillian White. I think I would pay pay-per-view for that, but the other two, I mean, Chris Arreola, 40 plus, he is a shell of what he used to be, albeit he gave Ruiz a good fight. And Franklin, relatively unproven and definitely not a pay-per-view B-side at this point in his career. He's got to have a couple more wins to justify, people to talk about him, but yeah, we'll see, because White did say he wanted to step down from where he'd been fighting, and Franklin would fit that bill. I know that sounds ruthless, but, we have pecking orders in the heavyweight division, and Franklin is just not on that same sort of level as White at this point. He's got to prove that. And Andy Ruiz Jr., as we know, he has had some long-standing knee trouble, and that was reported recently, an issue that he'd had for 3 years. Apparently, he was undergoing surgery, and here he says, great day at the beach after therapy. Much love to all my fans and supporters around the world. Saludos. I think that's what that says, and then a whole bunch of emojis. But what I was struck by was something about this pose doesn't quite seem right. And I'm not saying like it's a suck-in thing. It just sort of seemed a bit odd. But would have liked to have seen this knee, because apparently that's injured. Well, was it the right knee? I think it was. He's apparently was having surgery, but at least at least had therapy. But the photo just sort of reminded me of, because it was like, if he was side on, it would sort of look like this guy, in terms of the posture. It sort of looks like, so we'll just flick back and forth. You see what I mean? Anyway, it's quite late here. I'm done for the day after 10 hours. On to the next one. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.